Mendocino County. But judging from just the raw contacts that have come into the county, they are extremely limited from our standpoint. Most of those issues I've been able to either give to CDC or to Pamela West and her group or the EDFC as far as different projects that we're doing. But there are not a lot of people that are beating down the doors to come into Mendocino County. One of the areas that I get a little more interest out of people than other areas when we talk about economic development is regarding the redevelopment agency that we formed. And I do have the redevelopment areas, put on nice little placards for you here for anybody that needs a refresher. To be honest with you, needs the refresher on what our redevelopment areas are in the county. But there are some unique opportunities connected with the redevelopment agency that the board has formed. And we're not meeting today as the redevelopment agency, but those are the boundaries of the three areas that we do have in the county. They're on the county website. We just kind of made them something a little handy that you can pass around. We did include, and this was a series of questions that came up off economic development, the RDA websites out of Sacramento, packet for you to read. And they're just reaffirming a lot of things that I think most of the board members know about the RDA. But I think when you look at an RDA, and I've tried to reduce it down to the simplest component, for every $1 million that you generate in a redevelopment area in tax increment, 20% of those funds would go to, is required to go toward housing. So that's $200,000, and then $800,000 can be spent within the boundaries of that redevelopment area. So just as a basic concept, when you're talking redevelopment, what I like to look at is every $1 million in tax increment, not property tax, but in tax increment. Every time we go up on $1 million, that's what creates the money for us to work with the redevelopment agencies. There are a number of ways that you can use the money in the redevelopment areas. I'm not the expert on the subject. One of our speakers that we would bring you to talk about it more intelligently than I can. Obviously, the things you use them for are for landscaping improvements, road improvements, water, getting rid of utility lines, undergrounding utility lines, and so forth. So you would typically spend that money in an RDA within the boundaries of that RDA. There are other ways that you can spend those money, and housing is a particular component I'll talk about at the end of this and how we spend our housing money. But because our RDA is not developed extensively, we have limited funds that are accumulating for these kind of partnerships. So there are a whole series of question answers, explanations, again, for further reading by the board. I just think that that's the one area where we have some really good potential to do some things with economic development and create some money for housing. The city is extensively involved with their redevelopment agency, and we've had some discussions with the city staff around what is the most appropriate role for each of the agencies to follow. And one of the things later on I'll be asking the board for some direction is I think what the county has the 20% set aside that we currently have, which is a very limited amount of money for us to engage staff time on and to work with spending that money, that there may be a better partnership that's out there, a different model, working with the cities with the redevelopment agency money. There are issues where monies can be spent, for instance, on North State Street, and this is what information that has been shared with me has to do with the North State Street. At one point we were going to underground the utilities and clean up that area down there. Unfortunately, because the city has their own utilities district, PG&E is not responsible for undergrounding that the utility lines in that area. So that project didn't move forward to underground those utility lines. We do have money under Rule 28 to underground those utility lines, but the city's portion, which the city would pay for, they did not want to move forward with that. But there are other ways using the redevelopment agency funds that I think we could move forward. So just wanted to stress with you that I think there's a number of opportunities that we have here with the redevelopment agencies, working specifically with our local cities with some initiatives that the executive office would recommend to you in the future. So don't want to take time away from our panel, so I'll turn some time back over to Allison for Mendocino Futures.
Okay, so we will start with our first panel here, and that's Mendocino Futures, and I'm going to introduce Steve Zweiback, and I'll let you introduce everyone else. Does that work?
Before we move to that,
Okay.
Supervisor Smith has a...
Oh, okay.
Yes, I have a question about our CEO. Tom, what you're referencing, I think just it's a very short and brief reference to redevelopment. Would like to know when the board's going to get a real time to talk about redevelopment in depth. And when you're talking about the set-aside dollars and the ability to partner, what I didn't hear any mention of the coast. What ideas do you have, or what's been explored thus far about how redevelopment dollars can get to the North Coast?
Thank you. We do intend to bring that forward to the board, sitting as the redevelopment agency. So we will bring that for you with a more formal presentation and with some agenda items for the board in the very near future. I have had some discussions with the city of Fort Bragg regarding some housing projects that they would like to do. And there is, and again, I'm not the expert on the subject, but there appears to be some ability for us to spend the 20% money for our RDA as long as it's spent within the county of Mendocino. I think there is an opportunity to expend those funds in other cities within the county. So we have had some very preliminary discussions about what projects are out there that people can use. We just have such limited funds. I think in our RDA, the way it has developed right now, it would not be appropriate for us to move forward with a project. It needs to be in a partnership with somebody else that has some money to bring forward to the table.
Thank you.
Supervisor Colfax.
One of the things that I see here, just going through this material, most of which is rather old or should be well known to the supervisors here, but we have 386 active redevelopment agencies and communities throughout the state, and they have created 20,048 units of low and moderate income housing, which comes out to an average of 52 units, whether moderate or low income. Quite frankly, my experience having looked at redevelopment efforts over the last probably 55 years, starting in Pittsburgh, going through New Haven, going through Hartford and so forth, and objecting to, I think I'm one of only 2 supervisors up here who voted on the creation of the redevelopment agency here some years ago. So when I hear that we don't quite have a whole lot as things evolve, I wonder why. I hope we're not going to spend an awful lot of time talking about this hope that was the hope out there 7 years ago when the vote was 4-1 by the esteemed Board of Supervisors to go forward with this. And I would say 52 units of housing, considering what has happened in the redevelopment area to those in low-income communities and so forth. You know, it's not an opinion, but it's a fact. It's not something that we should probably be thinking about as development, but rather relocation, reorganization that serve a certain element, primarily corporate big business in most jurisdictions.